สวัสดีค่ะท่านนักลงทุนทุกท่านทางบริษัทหาดทิพย์มีความยินดีเป็นอย่างยิ่งที่วันนี้ได้รับเกียรติมาร่วมพบปะกับท่านนักลงทุนแล้วก็ให้อ่าคำอธิบายเกี่ยวกับผลประกอบการของไตรมาส 2ที่ผ่านมาค่ะก่อนอื่นดิฉันจะขอแนะนำท่านผู้บริหารของหาดทิพย์ในวันนี้ที่ให้โอกาสมาร่วมประชุมในวันนี้อะค่ะท่านแรกก็คือคุณอมฤต เชษฐา Chief Financial Officer ค่ะ
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Rich Resta here. Thank you.
ท่านที่สองคือคุณพงศกรเที่ยงธรรมเป็นกรรมการของบริษัทย่อยในเครือหาดทิพย์แล้วก็เป็นที่ปรึกษาของประธานเจ้าหน้าที่บริหารค่ะแล้วก็อีกท่านหนึ่งคือคุณนิธินาถจันทสุรัตน์ผู้อำนวยการบัญชีอาจจะไม่ได้แสดงในหน้าจอนี้นะคะสุดท้ายก็คือตัวดิฉันเองเพลินพันธ์รัชกิจประการเป็นผู้ช่วยของประธานเจ้าหน้าที่บริหารค่ะงั้นดิฉันจะขอเริ่มเลยอะค่ะโดยขอให้ทาง CFO ของเราเนี่ยให้เกียรติในการอธิบาย Quarter 2อะค่ะคุณอมฤต please start.
Yeah, thank you, Jen, for the introductions and opening of the session. Good afternoon, everyone. It's our pleasure for the Hartip team to be sharing our performance update as part of our opportunity day today. So we will probably take 15 to 20 minutes to share the progress update, and then the remainder of the time we will be spending to address any feedback or questions if there are any. So let us start with our industry review for the south of Thailand for the first 6 months of 2021. So before we look at our performance for the Hartip, we look at how the NARTD industry has performed in the marketplace. So as you can see there, for the 6 months of 2021 in south of Thailand, where Hartip territory is, and the total NARTD value declined by 8.4%. That is, due to the ongoing impact of the pandemic and the lockdown measures. So if we look at that, how that 8.4% is made up of, within that you see the biggest decline in terms of the percentage value was in the juice category at 19% there, and then sparkling was 7.7. Even the water saw the decline, which is not normal in Thailand, even in those last years, when there are some economic issues and so on, we saw water continuing to increase, but this is the time where even water category is declining. So in terms of that first 6 months, if you look at that, 8.4% for the first 6 months was slightly lower than last year, that was declining around 13%, and Q2 in particular for 2021 was declining around 3%. With that, if you look at on the right side of the chart, which is very important element, that we look at how we are performing in the marketplace as a Hartip company. So if we look at that graph, it shows that we have 26.3% share within NARTD. So we are continuing to maintain our leadership position in total NARTD sector, and a 0.4% improvement versus end of 2020. Within that, our sparkling share, we are able to maintain at 81.7%, and we are making good progress with a lower base, but growing the water share in the marketplace to 6.8%. Next, quick snapshot of our results for the first 6 months. In terms of the total volume that we measure in unit cases, million unit cases, we sold 31.5 million unit cases in the first 6 months. That was growth of 2.1% versus same period last year. And that was made up of domestic sales of 28.9 million cases and some made-to-order sales to our colleagues in the north of Thailand, Thainamthip. We were selling 2.6 million cases. With that, as I said earlier, we are continuing to maintain a very strong market leadership position, both in NARTD and sparkling water, 6.8%. In terms of some of the key highlights of how we have been able to deliver that kind of results, even during this pandemic period, is basically three focus areas and good progress in those areas. We upsized one of our key selling SKU of the 455 ml PET to 505, maintaining the same price. That means giving a bit more value to the consumers. In terms of the traditional trade in south of Thailand, we do get heavily impacted in terms of our CVS channels, 7-Eleven and other channels because of the pandemic and higher reliance on tourism when compared to north of Thailand. So with that, we continue to focus in our traditional trade channel, which is our stronghold as a Coca-Cola, bottling partner. We have quite a wide reach of network with our direct stores and so on. With that, we are able to grow our volume 22% for the first 6 months. And as you can see there, we are also able to increase our outlet space by 14% during this period. In terms of the overall results, the sales revenue was minus 1% versus last year. GP margin was relatively kind of maintained at the level of 41.4%. With declining revenue, we are continuing to focus on realizing efficiencies in the cost of goods sold and other marketing investments and operating expense. So with that, some of the efficiencies, we are able to report a profit growth of 7% for the first 6 months and EPS growth of also 7%. Net profit margin, we are making good progress, reaching 10% profit margin for the first 6 months. Busy chart, but I will focus on the key numbers here. As I mentioned, our year-on-year growth was 2% in the volume, domestic sales flat, and made-to-order sales increase of 26%. In terms of revenue, because of the mix between the domestic sales and also the made-to-order sales, we were minus 1% on the revenue. That is also given by the fact that during the pandemic, where the CVS stores and many HoReCa channels are not operating at a full capacity, our mix of the larger format packs were higher than the small, or what we call immediate consumption pack, was lower. So that did impact our revenue compared to the volume. In terms of the gross profit, we're minus 2. That was a combination of two factors. One was there was one-off support last year from our suppliers in the pandemic period. That was not the case this year in terms of getting the support. Secondly, we are also facing some headwinds in terms of the commodity prices, specifically on the resin and cans prices. Global prices have moved up quite sharply in the first few months. Now it is stabilizing and getting some savings there versus the beginning of the year, but for the first 6 months, we were negatively impacted. We were able to partially offset that with a continued focus on reformulations and increase of our no sugar or less sugar product portfolio. With that, as I mentioned earlier, we continue to focus on driving efficiencies on the distribution expense and operating expenses, including the marketing investments, being very choiceful on where we invest our marketing funds and so on. With that, we are able to realize a profit growth of 7% at the net profit level. And as you can see there, EBITDA margin, EBIT margin, and also the margins on the net profit are continuing to improve. So it's pretty good. So some of the trend summary of our revenue and OPEX, gross profit and net profit areas. Key areas to highlight are that in terms of the revenue, when you look at year on year for the second quarter, it was growing by 3%, which is good. Even when you compare with the quarter one, we were getting 5% growth on the revenue side. Gross profit margins relatively maintaining that 41.4%. That, as I mentioned, we did have some one-off impact from special rebate we got in our last year base that was not recurring this year, but we are able to maintain a quite a decent level of gross profit margin at around 41%. In terms of the OPEX, as you can see there, with our focus on driving efficiencies, we are realizing some improved efficiencies in our SG&A, where if you compare for the 6 months, total expense was 5% lower than last year, and the percentage of revenue also improved to 30%. Now in the net profit and the net profit margin, as we see there, our margins for the first 6 months improved from 9.3% last year to 10%. So there is a growth of 0.7 percentage points in the operating net profit margin, and total profit was up by 7%. On the next, yes, this one is the balance sheet highlight. The key message here we wanted to share is that no significant change in our asset or liabilities position. We continue to maintain a relatively, decent level of balance sheet positions, and that does include our strength on the cash flow positions. As you can see there, we did generate free cash flow from the operations of 547 million baht. And then for the investment activities, because we did have some surplus cash, so whenever we have surplus cash, we do place them on a short-term deposits to get slightly better returns or the interest on the deposit rather than leaving the cash at the bank. So with that, we do maintain quite a healthy level of cash flow position, and we are continuously able to repay our long-term loans. As of now, we are not in the need of using any of our short-term working capital loan, which is a pretty good situation. CapEx, not a significant investment. It is an ongoing investment to renew some of our fleets in the marketplace, and also continued investments in our cold drinks equipment, coolers being one of the key areas that we are continuing to focus with our reach on the direct outlets and so on. This is one area where we still see quite a good level of opportunities to continue investing in the cold drinks equipment. When we compare with our cooler penetration in south of Thailand with other markets, including north of Thailand, we are slightly under index. So that will be one area of continued focus for us to increase our investments in a cautious manner in this cold drinks equipment, mainly on the cooler and some dispensing machines. In terms of the key financial ratios, we do have good improvement in all the ratios in terms of the return on asset, return on employed capital. As you can see there, quite a decent increase in terms of return on asset from 10.1% to 13.2% this quarter. And then, as you can see there, in terms of the ROE also improving to 17.8. Another key measures, debt to equity and the interest-bearing debt, quite a good level of improvement there. As I mentioned, we are able to continuously repay our long-term loans that we have with the banks, but no short-term borrowings for the past many quarters. In terms of activities ratios, overall good progress. Our cash cycle days is around 33 days, made up of inventory holding of 33 days and the collection period of 25 and payment period of 25. Pretty consistent with how we have performed in the past few quarters, from some improvements in fact. Quite a decent level of interest coverage ratio, reaching 57 times at the end of June this year, compared to 39 last year, as we continuously repay our long-term debt. That was about how we performed financially for the first 6 months of the year. Some of the key areas where we focus from marketing and new product launch perspective. In Q2, as part of the global relaunch of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar with the improved formulation, Thailand did also focus on that relaunch, and we are getting quite a good results. We in collaboration with the Coca-Cola company, we are doing a number of activities in addition to rebranding the position, repositioning the brand. We did a number of samplings, in-store POSM, and so on. As a result, we are getting quite a good growth of this Coca-Cola Zero Sugar in the first 6 months of the year, and that is also consistent with how other markets globally are performing in the Coca-Cola Zero Sugar platform. And for Thailand, it is also important for us to continue, providing wider consumer portfolio choices with a low and no sugar. At the same time, this also helps us to drive our overall costs with the low sugar consumption and also less or no taxes or sugar taxes in these product portfolios. In terms of the dividend return to the shareholders, as you can see there, last year the dividend per share, we increased that to 1.9 baht per share. That was growth of around 8% versus last year. In the first 6 months of this year, the approved dividend is 0.83 baht per share. That is around 50% of our earning per share, in line with our overall policy of the dividend payment ratio, and that shows an increase of 6% in the dividend payment compared to the same period last year. Quickly on the 2021 business plan and guidance, with a continuing level of uncertainties from the pandemic and various lockdown measures, it's difficult for us to give a precise number for the full year projection. So this was something that we had shared with the investor and analyst community since beginning of this year in terms of the overall growth expectations, which we have not revised so far, and we believe that with continued easing of the lockdown measures that we are witnessing in Thailand, we are still driving to get our revenue growth, top line growth, which is a very important element for us, to be in the range of 3 to 6%. Within that, our new businesses, that is to do with more on the distribution business and some restaurant business, that would contribute the growth in the range of 2 to 4% of the total company revenue. And we will continue to focus in driving the COGS and OPEX efficiencies and being very choiceful on where we direct or redirect our resources, so that will continue for the rest of the year and also in 2022. On the left side, you may have seen these focus areas for us for 2021, and also that will probably also continue in 2022, where we will remain to be very dynamic in terms of our distribution channels and how we adjust depending on the various measures from the pandemic in the marketplace. Cooler penetration, I mentioned that even during this pandemic, we are being very choiceful where we increase our cooler investment. So our plan for this year to increase the total population of the cooler in the market by over 25%. We may be slightly below that, but that is our kind of a high-level target for the incremental cooler placement. Outlet increase, you saw decent number so far year to date June. Full year, our original target is around 16% overall. And below you can see some of the enabling activities, including looking at our glass business in certain channels, Coca-Cola Zero Sugar relaunch, which I already covered, And also importantly, it's not a big business for us yet, but we will continue to look at opportunities in e-commerce and digital areas. With that plus some of the new areas of the business, which we will go in a bit more details later, commercial business, food and beverage, and real estate, some of the exploration. We believe that that will further strengthen the group's results in the next couple of years. With all of that, our mid to long-term vision is to reach 30% leadership share in the market in NARTD, which is currently 26.3 in the next few years by 2025. That is our overall vision. And the new businesses in terms of the commercial restaurants and the other line of businesses, would you like me to cover that, Kanto, or would you want to do that?
I think please you go ahead, Amrit.
Okay. Sure. In terms of the commercial business, this was the new line of business that we started probably around 12 months back this time last year. The whole idea of this commercial business is to leverage our strength in the distribution muscle we have in the south of Thailand through the connections and network of our distribution channels, and start to carry some of the selective products from other FMCGs, obviously not our competitors, but other FMCG companies to try to increase our top line growth and also at the same time generate some incremental margin. So that is in the commercial business. So that's basically the scope of this business called Hard Tip Commercial. And key results so far, because of the pandemic, our progress has not been at the level that we had initially anticipated. At the same time, we have been, let's say, a bit more disciplined and choiceful on listing new vendors. So as you can see there, how our portfolio is diversified into this distribution business in mom and baby products, food snacks, personal cares and home cares. On the right, you can see there, we have added around 10 new vendors so far in terms of these distribution of these companies' products. At the same time, we are also doing some exploration on our own brand, and the one that we have launched in the marketplace is called, MK Serum, that is for the, let's say, beauty product. And initially, it's doing okay so far. We just launched a couple of months back. Initial reaction has been reasonably okay. We will continue to market this product. The whole idea is to look at diversifying this business and also do some testing of our own in-house brand that we have created. On the next page, food and beverage business. So there are two areas. One is some of the franchise, let's say, businesses that we have started since last year. This is the bakery line product, Miss Mammon and Taroto. Again, we are making good progress with only one outlet in terms of the progress, meaning on how we can make these outlets to a workable condition and start to generate some a positive margin from these outlets. So doing pretty okay even in this pandemic period. We will continue to learn and potentially expand this business with new outlets in few months' time. At the same time, we have also utilized some space that we have in the south of Thailand for the for a cloud kitchen, and again, it's a very low investment, but testing some in-house concept in terms of wrappers, and then also some of the products that you can see there, including a tofu product with a collaboration with a Japanese, let's say, group there. Starting that, I think it will be launched soon. Again, it's a low investments, but it's testing some concept there with the cloud kitchen. On the right, this is a joint venture that we have set up with Zen Group. The joint venture name is called Kindi UD, and so far we have these 6 outlets there with this company. With the pandemic, we have not been able to progress that well in these outlets, specifically in the south of Thailand, with the collapse of tourism, especially in Hatyai areas where the province used to see a huge influx of tourists from Malaysia and other parts. It's not the case, so very slow progress there. At the same time, we are seeing opportunities in Bangkok, and you can see other Trang and so on. These areas are doing relatively better than the one in south. But again, here, the whole intent is to explore this concept and grow in a phased manner. Quick highlights of how we are managing the COVID-19 impact within our organizations and some of the efforts we are making to help the community that we are in. In terms of the overall vaccinations, you can see there, majority of our associates have been fully vaccinated with both doses, reaching a 96-97% level so far. And we have been able to contain and manage this impact of this pandemic in our operations quite well. Very isolated cases of the infections, but they have all been fully addressed and treated. So we have no interruption in any of our businesses in the production or supply chain. So we're managing quite well from that perspective. We have also increased some investments in safety measures and so on in our plants. In addition to that, as I mentioned, we are also working with the community in the south to help our relief efforts, by providing some products free and a couple of other areas that you can see there.
So we have like 14 to 15 questions.
Sure.
ทีนี้จะขอเข้าคำถามเลยนะคะคำถามเนี่ยจะแบ่งเป็น3กลุ่มใหญ่โดยเราจะกลุ่มcore business ก่อนค่ะ for the first one we would like to know the growth trend in Q3 and Q4 and opportunity for growth in the future.
Yeah, as I shared earlier, our full year guidance have been maintained at the level that we initially set up in the beginning of the year. It is uncertain timing in terms of looking at revising these expectations. I mean, Q3, as we see in the marketplace, there is a easing of some of the lockdown measures. Tourism is still very, very low level in areas, in particular in Phuket, Sandbox, and Samui, and so on. I mean, it is starting to see some return of the tourism, but not to a large extent. So it is quite slow. Now, with continued easing of the lockdown measures, we do expect our overall business to return to growth in Q3 and Q4. And that is our expectations. Again, once the lockdown measures are eased in line with the improved vaccination rate, and that's the key. We do expect that the vaccinations rate will continue to improve in the next few weeks, and that will help easing of the lockdown measures. So at this point in time, we expect to gain some real growth in our businesses in Q3, Q4, depending on how the situation evolves.
คำถามต่อไปนะคะสำหรับอนาคตจะมีแผนขยายกำลังการผลิตและการข้อ2รวมกันนะคะคือการขยายเครื่องจักรไปที่โรงงานพุนพินเนี่ยจะช่วยเพิ่ม GPM ได้มากแค่ไหนคะ
ขออนุญาตตอบคำถามนี้นะคะในการขยายเครื่องจักรเนี่ยเดี๋ยวนะคะขอโทษค่ะ สำหรับแผนการขยายกำลังการผลิตเนี่ยก็คือตอนนี้ขึ้นอยู่กับความต้องการในตลาดที่จะเกิดขึ้นน่ะค่ะซึ่งก็ค่อนข้างขึ้นอยู่กับสถานการณ์ของโควิดณปัจจุบันเนี่ยว่ามันจะส่งผลกระทบต่อเนื่องไปขนาดไหนอะค่ะแล้วก็ธุรกิจเองเนี่ยจะ recover กลับมาได้เร็วแค่ไหนซึ่งการที่อ่าปัจจุบันเนี่ย capacity เรายังคงมีเหลืออยู่เพียงพออาจจะมีในส่วนของตัวแพ็กเกจจิงที่เป็น PET หรือขวดพลาสติกเนี่ยที่ใช้กำลังการผลิตไปค่อนข้างพอสมควรแล้วอะค่ะตรงนี้ทางบริษัทเองก็มีการพิจารณาตรงนั้นอยู่เพื่อดูว่ากำลังการผลิตเนี่ยจะรองรับไปได้จนถึงเมื่อไหร่ซึ่งการที่เรามีกำลังการผลิตเพิ่มขึ้นเนี่ยเพื่อรองรับความต้องการที่จะกลับมาในอนาคตจากสถานการณ์ที่ดีขึ้นเนี่ยค่ะก็จะส่งผลให้ GP เราดีขึ้นน่ะค่ะรวมถึงที่ผ่านมาเนี่ยการที่เราย้ายฐานกำลังการผลิตเนี่ยจากโรงงานหาดใหญ่ไปรวมอยู่ที่พุนพินตอนนี้กำลังการผลิตส่วนใหญ่ก็จะไปอยู่ที่พุนพินเป็นหลักตรงนั้นเนี่ยก็ช่วยทำให้ GP margin ของเราเนี่ยปรับตัวดีขึ้นถ้าจะดูจากในช่วง 2-3 ปีที่ผ่านมาเราสามารถทำอัตรากำไรขั้นต้นหรือ GP margin เนี่ยดีขึ้นเรื่อยๆอะค่ะ
คำถามต่อไปนะคะเทรนด์การรักสุขภาพและพฤติกรรมผู้บริโภคที่เปลี่ยนแปลงไปมีผลต่อบริษัทอย่างไรบ้างและบริษัทเตรียมรับมืออย่างไร
สำหรับเทรนด์การรักสุขภาพเนี่ยทางบริษัทเองร่วมกับทาง Coca-Cola เนี่ยก็คือตระหนักถึงเทรนด์ตรงการรักสุขภาพเนี่ยมาสักพักหนึ่งแล้วค่ะเราก็มองเห็นการบริโภคของผู้บริโภคเองที่ต้องการเครื่องดื่มที่ใช้น้ำตาลลดลงแล้วก็ส่งผลให้กระตุ้นให้สุขภาพเราดีขึ้นอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะตรงนั้นเนี่ยเราก็พยายามที่จะออกผลิตภัณฑ์ใหม่ๆออกมาเพื่อเป็นช้อยซ์ให้กับทางผู้บริโภคเองในส่วนของผลิตภัณฑ์ที่เป็น Zero Sugar ไม่ว่าจะเป็นในส่วนของโค้ก Zero Sugar เอง Fanta หรือว่ามันจะมีพรอดักต์อื่นๆที่มีแผนที่จะออกมาในอนาคตอีกค่ะรวมถึงในฝั่งของน้ำดื่มเราเองเนี่ยเราก็กระตุ้นในส่วนของยอดขายน้ำดื่มให้เพิ่มขึ้นแล้วก็มีผลิตภัณฑ์ในแง่ของน้ำแร่ออกมาเพื่อตอบสนองตรงนี้ด้วยค่ะ
So for the aluminum price that has been increased, how much it could affect to our cost of goods sold, and also trend for the SG&A in the second half, would it be lower like the first half? ราคาอลูมิเนียมตอนนี้เนี่ยค่ะมีส่งผลกระทบกับต้นทุนเราอย่างไรแล้วก็ค่าใช้จ่าย SG&A ปีที่แล้วจะปีนี้เทียบกับปีที่แล้วเนี่ยจะเป็นอย่างไรเชิญ
Sorry, Amrit.
Yeah,
Let me answer in the part of the aluminum price.
sure.
So ในส่วนของราคาอลูมิเนียมที่ปรับตัวสูงขึ้นเนี่ยก็ส่งผลกระทบต่อต้นทุนของเราในส่วนหนึ่งอะค่ะแต่เพียงแต่ว่าตอนนี้เนี่ยเราเองก็มีสัดส่วนการขายในส่วนของผลิตภัณฑ์กระป๋องหรือแคนเนี่ยไม่ได้เยอะมากอะค่ะเนื่องจากว่า channel ที่ขายผลิตภัณฑ์กระป๋องเนี่ยก็คือได้รับผลกระทบไปด้วยอย่างเช่นว่าช่องทาง Horeca เองที่เป็นโฮเทลรีสอร์ทหรือคาเฟอย่างเงี้ยค่ะก็มีการปิดร้านค้าไปเยอะในช่วงนี้แล้วก็ที่ผ่านมาเราเนี่ยในช่วงปีที่แล้วเราก็มีการปรับตัวแพ็กเกจจิ้งของเราให้ใช้อลูมิเนียมน้อยลงด้วยค่ะตรงนี้ก็เลยทำให้ผลกระทบมันไม่ได้เยอะมากค่ะ
And for SG&A trend in second half.
SG&A, as we shared, we are able to maintain around 30% for the first 6 months. Again, it all depends on the level of revenue growth, top line growth. Obviously, one thing is for sure that in terms of the spending and so on, we are very much cautious and we are doing in a very disciplined way. So if we are able to generate the growth in the top line revenues as we are anticipating that ratios should improve in the second half. Besides the top line growth, we will continue to be very disciplined in terms of our operating expense efficiency.
Okay, so for the outlook for the 2022 for the CapEx.
For the 2022, we are currently in the business planning process, and this is very important because we are also looking at strong recovery in many areas with the improved vaccination rates. So if that was to be achieved again with the vaccination rates improving to, let's say, 40-50% of the total population by end of the year, we do see quite a positive outlook for the next year in terms of tourism return and overall growth in the economy and domestic consumption and so on. With that in mind, we are currently working on the scenarios in terms of the capital expenditure requirements, in terms of infrastructure plans for the next couple of years. So we have not finalized that plan yet. We do hope to be able to conclude that in the next couple of months before we start the year, and we'll be able to share that a bit more specific plan in the next opportunity.
ค่ะคำถามต่อไปจะเกี่ยวกับเรื่องธุรกิจใหม่นะคะมีคำถามมาว่าไม่ทราบว่าธุรกิจบริหารโลจิสติกส์มีกำไรหรือยังถ้ายังคาดว่าจะคุมทุนได้ประมาณเมื่อไหร่คะ
คงต้องขอบอกว่าจริงๆธุรกิจโลจิสติกส์ของเรายังไม่ได้เริ่มเลยนะฮะเป็นเรื่องเป็นราวแต่ที่เรามีแล้วนี่คือที่เราเรียกว่าหาทิปคอมเมอร์เชียลคือที่เรารับจัดจำหน่ายสินค้าให้ลูกค้าของเราฮะเป็น distribution อย่างเดียวนะฮะ sale กับ distribution นะครับอันนี้ก็อย่างที่เมื่อกี้คุณอมฤตพูดถึงไปเราก็มีอยู่หลายร้อย SKU แล้วตอนนี้นะฮะmargin ธุรกิจก็product ก็สินค้าก็มีหลายประเภทนะครับ margin มันก็ต่างกันไปบ้างแต่ว่าoverall แล้วเนี่ยเราก็มี target ในใจว่าเราจะต้องมี margin ที่เป็น gross margin มันก็จะทำให้เราสามารถทำกำไรได้แต่ว่าขณะเดียวกันเราก็ต้องเอมที่จะต้องมียอดขายหรือว่ามีสินค้าเพิ่มขึ้นมาอีกมากพอสมควรนะครับปีหน้าเองเราก็มองว่าเราน่าจะมีถึง500 SKU นะฮะไม่ทราบตอบคำถามครบไหมฮะคุณตู่
ได้ค่ะแล้วก็อีกคำถามหนึ่งนะคะธุรกิจอื่นเช่นธุรกิจสกินแคร์ของแบรนด์ตัวเองค่ะแล้วก็อสังหาริมทรัพย์เป็นอย่างไรบ้างคะ
สกินแคร์ที่เราออกมาที่เป็นซีรั่มนะฮะก็เราเพิ่งออกมาได้ประมาณ2 เดือนซึ่งก็ต้องบอกว่าตอนนี้ก็ยังเป็นช่วงเริ่มต้นอยู่แล้วขณะเดียวกันมันก็จากที่เจอปัญหาล็อกดาวน์ที่ผ่านมาช่วง2 เดือนเนี่ยก็เลยทำให้การทำโฆษณาเนี่ยค่อนข้างลำบากนะครับเราก็หวังว่าตอนนี้เองเนี่ยก็มีการปรับแผนทำ PR อยู่นะฮะแล้วก็หวังว่าจากการที่เริ่มมีการคลายล็อกดาวน์เนี่ยมันจะทำให้เราสามารถทำโครงการการโฆษณาเนี่ยได้ดีขึ้นขนาดเดียวกันเราก็กำลังเหมาะศึกษาการที่ตลาดเพื่อนบ้านใกล้ๆกับเราด้วยว่าจะมี potential ขนาดไหนนะฮะเช่นเขมรก็ดีนะครับหรือลาวก็ดีนะฮะกำลังศึกษางานกันอยู่ซึ่งคิดว่า ภายในสิ้นปีเนี่ยคงจะสรุปกันได้ส่วนเรื่องหาดทิพย์property นี่เราก็ยังอยู่ในช่วงศึกษาอยู่เหมือนกันนะครับเรื่องการว่าจะออกโครงการมาเป็นลักษณะไหนนะฮะเนื่องจากที่ผ่านมาก็เพราะเรื่องโควิดเนี่ยเลยทำให้ธุรกิจอสังหาริมทรัพย์ก็ยังค่อนข้างจะเงียบเหงาพอสมควรนะครับในทางใต้ซึ่งโดยเฉพาะยิ่งที่หาดใหญ่เพราะว่านั่นก็คือตลาดแรกที่เรามองว่าเราจะเริ่มโครงการขึ้นมานะฮะแต่เราก็คิดว่าภายในสิ้นปีเนี้ยมันน่าจะมีโครงการที่พอจะเห็นรูปเป็นร่างขึ้นมาได้นะครับว่าจะเป็นโครงการประเภทไหนเป็นบ้านเดียวบ้านคู่นะครับระดับของ positioning ของสินค้าจะเป็นยังไงนะครับคงพอจะเห็นภาพที่ชัดเจนขึ้นภายในสิ้นปี
ค่ะfor next one is that a new opportunity for existing business which is cannabis product whether you be interested in cannabis product or not
yeah, I mean we do get this question quite often. At this point in time, we have no plans, concrete plans to enter into cannabis products. Obviously, we are part of the Coca-Cola company's franchise business. So any new products, innovations, new categories, specifically in the NARTD segments would have to be consulted and approved from the Coca-Cola company. And we know that the Coca-Cola company does not have any concrete plan at this point in time for the cannabis. So I guess to sum up, now we will be open to look at that opportunities in time to come, but no concrete plan at this point in time.
Okay, this is a question for strategy. We only have the area territory for only the south. Do you think could it be the restriction for growth for our company?
Yeah, I mean in terms of the territories, yeah, as correctly mentioned, we are only in the south of Thailand. That's our franchise license. So at this point in time, we can't expand from the franchise territory perspective because the rest of the Thailand is covered by another franchise partner, Thainam Tip. At the same time, even in South, we do hold a decent market share, almost 82% share in the sparkling and 26% in NARTD. In both segments, we are a strong leader, but that does not mean that, we are not going to be able to continue growing these businesses because when we look at the per capita consumption in our territories with, even in Thailand, with the north of Thailand, and neighboring countries, we do have good opportunities to continue expanding or increasing the per capita consumption in the sparkling categories. And also, at the same time, the water, we see continued opportunities there. It's not a very high margin business, but it does give us incremental revenue and incremental margins. Also helps us to connect in a holistic way with our customers with the full product portfolios. So that's on the water. Also, there are other categories like juice that we are there, but we do have a very small market share. So we do believe that, still there are opportunities within sparkling and NARTD even in south of Thailand.
For the next question, we still can have the reformulation for further to cope with sugar tax next year.
Yeah, I mean the sugar tax, the phase 3 has been pushed to next year, Q4 next year. And in terms of our, let's say, the low or no sugar portfolios, we are making great progress with over 85% of our portfolios in sparkling falling into the categories of the low or less sugar formulations. That is consistent with the principle that we have agreed with the Coca-Cola company so far. Now, what we will continue to push is, Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, which is exempted from sugar taxes. Also, at the same time, it does provide great portfolio choices to the consumer. So these are some of the strategic moves we'll be looking at in terms of managing the third, and the next is the fourth phase of sugar tax that will be impacting us in 3 years' time from the fourth phase.
All right คุณเพลินพันธ์ค่ะ
อันไหนจะตู่
หมดเวลาแล้วค่ะ
โอเคยังไงต่อ ค่ะก็ขอบคุณท่านนักลงทุนที่ให้เกียรติมาร่วมฟังทางบริษัทหาดทิพย์ในวันนี้นะคะ หวังว่าเราจะได้มีโอกาสเจอกันอีกในรอบหน้าค่ะ ค่ะ ขอบคุณค่ะ